right? We all have anxiety. So instead of looking in the mirror and being like, oh, and feeding my anxiety or my stress or my lack, I look in the mirror and I go, I love my eyes. They see others. I love my mouth. It's going to say nice things today. And this chin right here, some people may not love those curves in that place. But everyone on my dad's side of the family has it. And these are people that I can find many examples of things that they did that I can admire. And it ties me to them. So I've taken a negative thing and made it a good thing. Possibly even more powerful than knowing who your tribe is knowing who isn't.
Absolutely.
So what voices, what words am I allowing to come into me? You can boil down a lot of the problems that I see with people is that it's outside perceptions is what they use to validate themselves. And I'm saying get rid of all validation.
Can I just say you have done so much. Like, you are a busy woman, and I feel like you are doing the most important work of all, is helping people and women feel confident, as well as speaking out about things that are hard to talk about. Like, it's incredibly hard to be as vulnerable as you are, and then as well as take it and teach other people like how to be resilient. So I just want to say thank you for coming on. You're an amazing person, I can already tell.
Well, first of all, Brighton, I'm 51. And it's funny how, people be like, wow, how did you do it all? And I'm like, one thing at a time. One thing at a time. And I think that we get this idea, especially with social media, that we do this comparison, contrast thing, especially as women, that, oh, is she thinner than me? Oh, does he like her more? Right? Those kinds of things. And it plays with our brains in such a way that's super, super poopy. That's my swear word of choice. Okay. So hot is good. Poopy is bad. Just so you all can speak Leta. Right. But I just did one thing at a time, and I just kept adding things, and I didn't quit other things. But when you're 51, you're going to be like, what? When did I grow up to be so impressive?
I love that.
You just keep doing stuff.
And I think, honestly, and I didn't even think to say this, but I love that you said that, because even I was on a podcast yesterday, and we talked a lot about how people can stay stagnant once hard things happen, and hard things happen to us all. And it's how we choose to either be resilient and move forward, or, we stay in that place, stay in that hurt. And I think, if you can take like what has happened to you and like change it into a beautiful thing, like I think it's incredible. And I actually pulled a quote, and you said this, which I completely agree with this. You said, people assume upon meeting me that nothing bad has ever happened to me because I'm so happy, because I'm so joyful. So clearly life has never hit me in the head, but I choose to be happy, and I choose to find happiness in my life. And that is not something anyone can do for you. Absolutely. I think that perfectly sums it up. And I think, and I even just like seeing you were so joyful, and I didn't know about your past, and you have written 2 books, which I will link everything in the description below. Your podcast, you're an author, you're a speaker, all of these things. And one of them is about finding, happiness in a fulfilling life after sexual abuse. And that's incredibly hard to speak about. But I just think if you're able to be in that place and be able to teach people, it's amazing. So.
Well, it was funny because with that book, it was never the book that I was like, oh, I'm going to write a book on this one day. In fact, I actually made a very conscious effort not to brand myself on the bad things that have happened to me. When I first started speaking, it was after what I call the adventure years, where my husband got hit by a bus, then had a massive heart attack, died in my arms, came back to life. I was in a wheelchair, and then our daughter died. And I branded myself. First, I started speaking on confidence in presentation, of how you present yourself. And, I'm a makeup artist, an image consultant, and I was speaking on how we perceive ourselves, right? How we project who we are. And it grew and morphed into deeper and deeper messages. And so I didn't just start one day. And I think this is really important for those in our audience who want to be speakers or authors, or, dare I say the word influencers, because I think that's so sticky, but that the victim mindset of, oh, this happened to me. If it becomes part of your definition of yourself, you are undermining your ability at future resilience and confidence.
Right.
So if I'm defining myself, as a woman, I'm not able to do X, Y, and Z because the mysterious they out there, or the patriarchy, or whatever, I am the one capping myself. Have I encountered sexism? Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one time somebody was writing me a check after my speech, and they said, they're paying the other 50%, right? And they said, you are the first woman we've hired.
You're like, oh,
at a women's empowerment
that?
conference. And it was a gentleman. And I said, I have a question before you finish writing that check. And he goes, yes. And I said, are you paying me as much as you've paid the men? And he was like, no. And I was like, go ahead and match that number.
Oh my
because
God.
I'm sure that the audience that I just spoke to would hate for you to be underpaying a woman. Now, if I just accepted that I somehow was being held down and that I had to fight for my right to sit at the table, right? I wouldn't have had I wasn't mad. I wasn't angry with him. I was just informing him of how things worked.
And to be really holding in your own power too, like,
right.
And not to be, and I think, during that time of almost confronting someone on something that's completely unjust, like, you could either fall into the mindset of like being super emotional and freaking out, all of those things, because I'm sure that didn't feel good. But it's like, I love that it's like, no, you were comfortable and confident in yourself to be able to, say exactly how it is. Like, that's not fair.
What you believe about the world, if you believe it is unfair, if you believe it is unjust, which it is, right? But if you are focused on that as something that you don't have the ability to impact, then you will accept the injustice. You will accept the unfairness.
Yeah.
And so it becomes an analytical, almost exercise of having a feeling but not reacting to that feeling unless it serves your purpose.
Yeah.
Right? And so if I were to freak out, would that have gotten me the extra 500?
No.
Right? Now, I didn't know.
Oh, you're too emotional. Oh, like, this is why, type of a thing.
Right. If we want to play in, I'm not going to say a man's world, if we want to play in the world, we have to realize that there is unfairness out there. But as long as we use it as our defining of ourselves, we are the one capping ourselves. If we want to break ceilings, then the ceiling is within me and what I will accept.
It's growth versus fixed mindset, like.
Right. Yeah. And stagnation that you brought up is that people do not have they have this anticipation that at some point things will all line up and it will be great. That the world will just find justice. That, everybody will be honest. Everyone will be kind. There'll be a time that I, through enough hard work or whatever, will make enough money, get the pay raise, have everything I want in life, and the vacation in Europe to boot. And then they're disappointed when their life is like a life.
Yeah.
Ups and downs and emotions and pain and loss. When you realize that the perks of life are less often than the drudgery of life.
Completely. This is something interesting that I'm thinking of, even with the stagnation that we brought up. When it comes to beauty, right? Because that's a big portion of what you do, is making women feel confident in terms of even their energy, but like with products and all of these things. I think that's such an energetic thing, even with beauty, where people become stagnant and it's like, oh, I guess I won't try. I guess I'm not beautiful. And it just keeps them in that place. Like, I think energy has so much to do with beauty, where it's like, if you believe you are ugly or unworthy in any way, but especially even like physically, I feel like that's going to almost manifest, and people will pick up on that energy and be like, oh, like, And that's just what she's accepted of herself. She's not having a growth mindset even in terms of that. What do you think about that?
Can I answer it in a long way?
Absolutely.
Okay. So growing up, grandma told me that I was ugly and that nobody would ever love me. And I talk about that in my first book. And it's kind of funny because grandmas typically don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
In my second book is Overcoming Sexual Abuse. What is interesting is then the man that chose to molest me told me I was so beautiful he couldn't help himself. But grandma at the very same time is telling me that I am ugly and unlovable. And I could look in the beauty magazines and I could look in popular culture, and I didn't have all of my teeth from 9 to 21, right?
Okay.
So my parents just didn't have probably had the money, but they didn't have the wherewithal in which to fix my teeth, right? So I did not fit in with my peers. And the one person that thought I was beautiful, that came at a very high price of them molesting me, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I want also to point out, this is a side note, that I'm not saying my abuser, because I do not own his actions.
It's the language in which you choose.
Right. This is something that is separate from me, that impacted me. And though I have the responsibility to clean that mess up in my own life, I'm not taking ownership of someone else's actions. I'm only in charge of my response. Right? But back to your question. So I've got grandma on one side and the molester on the other side. Which one do I believe? Now, most people do not have such polar examples. Most grandmas love you and tell you you're lovable and give you a cinnamon roll, right? Like most grandmas are nice. And 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 5 boys are molested. So unfortunately, it is less common to have grandma be mean to you than it is to have a molester in your life, right?
Wow.
So I had these two polar ideas, and that actually led me to truth. Because with most things, when we listen to the extremes, neither one of them have the answer. The truth is somewhere in the middle. I am neither so beautiful that men can't control themselves, and I'm neither so ugly that they're puking in their mouths when they see me. Right? The truth is, I'm normal. And so it took away a lot for me, the competition and the comparison, because I looked at it, instead of trying to compete with my peers of, am I cute enough for Joey to like me and for the girls to not make fun of me? It was like, what about her makes her attractive? What about her that makes her unattractive? And when you really look at it analytically, it did come back down to what they perceived of themselves. And so I did an experiment, and there's a whole other story about that that's in my first book, but I did an experiment where I decided to say to myself that everyone in this room loves me. And that experiment was given to me by God. And that was not something that was very much a part of my, God was used as a tool to punish, not to love. That was a new concept to me. So that there was something out there that valued me was a pretty foreign concept to me. But this came into my mind, that everyone in this room loves me. And I started repeating that. And what happened is, energetically, I was putting out confident girl vibes.
Yeah.
And within 2 weeks, I was the freshman spirit queen of my school. This cute boy wanted to be my boyfriend. Like all the things that teenagedom, success offer you. And I still didn't have all my teeth. I still didn't know what to do with my cowlicks in my hair. I had the same clothes that I had that got me teased in the other town, but I did something different about how I thought about myself. And this set me up for all my future successes and to not imprint my failures. Right?
You said you were a freshman. That was a freshman in high school?
Yes, I was a freshman in high school.
I love that. And I think, have you ever heard of the Marilyn Monroe effect? It's the same idea where there was this article written about one of her friends, and basically she would explain how she could turn it on and turn it off, and how she could walk out into a crowd with regular clothes while being turned off, and no one would recognize her. People wouldn't come up to her, but then she would literally experiment and be like, hey, watch me turn it on. And as soon as she did, people would start coming up to her, recognizing her, taking pictures. And I've always found that so fascinating. And I love that you can talk, with energetics, because like I'm super, I'm full into that. I fully believe like what you say to yourself every day, and even just your energy you hold is exactly like the outward is what the outward effect is going to be and what it's going to reflect back to you. But you did say something about, okay, so being a tomboy, which is so funny because I was fully a tomboy, like reading about how you were like, I'm a tomboy and I was proud that I could beat that beautiful girl up, like the beautiful girl that I wasn't up. Like I felt the same way. Like I played sports, like, the whole 9 yards. So
Yeah, I
with
could bench
that,
press 165 pounds at 13.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I
Have you
grew
ever
up
looked into
sitting in bubble.
powerlifting?
I worked like a man, and I am 5'9" with a size 14 shoulder, and I have the muscle on it that
Mhm.
was, now I've added a little layer of curves and fat, because I like the brownies, but I'm
Me too.
still a very strong woman,
Yeah. Um,
and I'm just not chiseled like I was.
yeah.
Yeah,
With that though, I was thinking about in terms of beauty, and I was like writing some notes, and one of them was, did the tomboy experience give you a different definition of beauty than what you encountered in the beauty industry later on?
absolutely. So the way I got started into makeup is because I'm very artistic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the person that when I see books on a shelf, I want to color code them. I think I just see the world in a little bit enhanced color, and I just want to organize the things. And so the girls were sneaking to school, and I remember this girl was putting her makeup on, and she was kind of struggling, and then wiping it off, and I was like, "Oh, I'll do it for you," because I mean, she was
Yeah.
like, blinking as she's trying to, and I was like, "Oh, I can draw in a straight line." I was
Mm.
artistic. And I did her makeup and just kind of did it. And she was like, "Oh, this looks amazing." And then the next day she comes up to me with all of her makeup and wants me to help her. So it wasn't an interest in beauty that got me into the beauty industry. It was
Mm.
that I was good at it
Mm.
and that I liked color. And then, I'm just starting to kind of learn what looks good on people, and I'm kind of playing with it. And then when those girls were going to the dances, they wanted me to put their makeup on. And then, when they were getting married, so my first makeup gig was at 17. Now, the way I made money prior to that, the only way I'd ever made money prior to that was crawling underneath a mobile home with spiders and rats to set it up, and carrying bricks and axles and being a maid.
Wow.
So when somebody offered me money to stand there and move my hands a little bit, I was like, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't something that I was like even particularly interested in.
Mm.
And part of that was the capping I had of my own mentality, right? Like other people could be pretty, but right? Like I still
Yeah.
had to learn some stuff like that. As everything in life, it's an evolution, right? But I was just good at it. And so it kept being there. And it wasn't until I was pregnant with my son that I actually started taking it seriously. It was
Mm.
just a way that I could make money. And I'm a hustler. I've been financially on my own since I was 15. If I wanted to eat, I need to earn money. So
Mm.
I have been a semi-clothed art model. I don't want anyone to get the impression of Leta's risque. I mean, there's a lot of weird jobs that I have done. If somebody was willing to pay me and it didn't involve stripping, right up to the edge of me just wearing like a swimsuit-ish, I was in. I was like, yeah, you're going to pay me for that? I'll do it, because
Yeah.
that was the world I came from. And what's fun about the beauty industry is because a lot of the beauty industry, and this is with a lot of things, is based upon our belief in their authority.
Mm.
And so the beauty industry makes more money if it makes you think that you are not enough without purchasing X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
And I was never the insider. Now, I have internationally trained other makeup artists how to be makeup artists. And I've been in a room in Indonesia where I'm the only Western face teaching Asian women how to put on makeup. And it's just funny. It's just a surreal moment, right? I have had amazing opportunities within the beauty industry, but I've never felt like I was a beauty insider because I never woke up in the morning thinking that my makeup or anything I put on my body defined me. It was like you talked about with the Marilyn Monroe effect. She used makeup and clothing and she knew it was a tool. And then she added that final piece of her turning it on. And the sad thing for Marilyn is she never figured out how to create her circle in such a way that she could be safe.
Yeah.
So we can use our beauty and that energy as a power play, or we can use it as a filter to who do we allow in.
Absolutely.
And one of my tests is if I'm not allowed to be off, just to be then that's not a safe person. If they have expectations of me being Leta Greene or Brighton Bridges, right? Like we all have our on persona. And if people only expect you to be one dimensional, then you're an object to them. But we do that with social media, don't we?
I was literally just going to say
sorry,
that.
I stole it from you.
No, you're fine. That's it's becoming a huge topic for me. I feel like I talk about it almost every episode because it's just so prevalent, and I have my own thoughts that I could get into later, but I was actually going to talk about that. So social media obviously is a highlight reel. You're only seeing the best parts, all of this stuff. But I will say that's interesting about like even the relationships, like who's a safe person that you can just like let down your guard? Because even with female friendships, there's some female friendships that I'm like, I don't feel like I can let down my guard and be like not perfect type of a thing. So that's interesting. With social media, I was actually going to ask you, is there anything you do to navigate social media to have the boundaries in terms of comparison or anything like that?
Well, I love that you are focusing on that because I think people want to hear this advice a lot more than they want to hear it from a 51-year-old lady, They want to hear
it. Still,
I'm awesome. But peers want to hear it from peers, right? We have always been tribal and we've always needed the acceptance of our peers. And women, if we did not fit in with the other women in our village, they kicked us out. We died. So when women want to hurt other women, they hurt them reputationally, meaning their reputation. When men want to hurt another man, they wrestle. Right? So when women are like, oh, I want a matriarchy, I'm like, I really don't. I'm really kind of liking the balance that we've got going of male to feminine energy. I like this conversation, but there are times that I'm going to use my male energy, like saying, did you want to pay me that extra check?
Yeah.
That was very male of me, right? Or what we would describe as male energy. But if you look at the yin and the yang, if it were women running the world, then there'd be a lot more gossip. And I think we have enough. I think we have enough. And women, when they hurt other women, it is much deeper than what a man professionally can do. Right? I mean, just think about junior high, everyone. Right? So when you're asking, how do you navigate social media, is I recognize that I have my core people whose opinion matters the most to me. And it is a very small group. It is first God, second my husband. I am willing to mother my children super hard, but I do care that it does matter to me that they respect me. And I have 2 to 5 girlfriends that I talk to regularly. 2 of them that live in my town. The rest do not live in my town. So I can pick up the phone. But these are people that when push comes to shove and I'm questioning myself, I can ask for their input. Right. And they have shown me over years that they will say the hard things to me. They will not validate me into mediocrity. Very important. Everyone else I see it like a bullseye. So there's inside that bullseye, who gets to be in there with me? Just me. Am I at peace with myself? When I look in the mirror, do I like what's reflecting from my soul? Then the next ring is my husband. The next ring are those people that I talked about, right? And we move on and on out. And there are people on social media that I know have my back, right? But like this morning, somebody called me a fascist. Well, I could get upset and be like, oh, wow, I can't believe she thinks that. She does not get this person, who I presume is female by their first name, does not have the same ability to affect me as my husband or my tribe. Or the people that have proven to me that they have my back. This is way out here on my bullseye, way out in outer ring. And so I just replied with, you're super fun at parties.
And yeah, fair.
And they're like, yes, because when fascists comes to my parties, we pour honey and feathers on them. Oh, I love honey.
Yeah. And
I just mocked them. I just mocked them.
Yeah.
Because why are they trying to poke me?
Especially online, they don't even, that's just like, yeah.
I give them power by my reaction, or I take power away by my reaction. Why would I care? Now, I do believe that that person is a child of God, unless they're a bot. But then they're ran by a child of God, right? And I had the gift of a sister-in-law who my brother divorced, thank heavens, because she was literally the grumpiest human I have ever had the up-close privilege. When my daughter died, her reaction to that was to send me a nasty letter with every family insult she could garner and 3 pages of this. So immediately I went from, I care about her opinion, to outer rung.
Yeah.
But you know what her pastime was?
Social media.
Arguing with people on social media. And so whenever somebody is attacking me, I think of, I will not say her name to give her, to give her that glory, right? But I think of this person and think about how miserable she is. How miserable she is to her children, how miserable and cruel she was to her spouse, how miserable she was to a woman in the moments after her child died. That is not a person who's got their bullseye lined up.
Yeah.
That is a power play.
And even going back to the other comment you got, it's like, it's because, you know, you are a confidence coach and you do all these things. It's like, you probably have that like inner center, right? And there's actually this question that I'm curious about as a confidence coach with women that come to you and they don't have that like center of confidence. What is like one of the first things you do or ask to see what's going on?
Yeah. The first thing is taking back, like we've already been talking about, taking back your definition of yourself. And it's based on others. Remember that abusers, narcissists, whatever term you want to use, they rob you of your self-worth by redefining you. And if you think about the ultimate battle between good and evil, it's all about how do you define you. And the victim mindset is about defining you by what's happened to you. Right? By holding that as a, you know, I'm born a female, I'm born Black, I'm born LGBT, whatever it is, why would you allow anything to define you? I am worthy of being defined as something unique. Never been seen before. Leta. Right? So taking all of those layers, but the thing is we hold on to layers that make us feel good. I'm beautiful, I'm athletic, I've accomplished this, I've accomplished that. But all of those things can be taken away. So you have to go back to defining yourself free of the good things and free of the bad things. That simply because you breathe. And I'll notice that a lot of times when I just say, just sit with it for a moment, they're like, they cannot be still. Now I have ADD, okay? My brain's got a lot going on. It's an asset and a gift to me, right? But just being able to be still with yourself, free of any accomplishment, free of any failure, defining you. And to me, the answer of that ultimately goes back to an awareness of, am I a child of God or not?
Mm.
And when I discovered that answer, I went from being suicidal, molested, beaten, yelled at, told I had no value. The only value that I had was the work I produced. And I literally remember trying to figure out how to end my life, but I couldn't figure out how to do it without leaving a mess because I was not worthy of the mess. That is how far down I was. And in a trailer in Blanding, Utah in 1983, it came to me that I had to define a new way of thinking of myself. And that was from the divine. And so I know that people want there to be like a self-help answer, a psychological and energetic, but all of those are answered in that one source of the divine. And how you define this, because I've talked to people all over the world, all different faith traditions, even people without faith. And however it is you define it, when you realize that you're valuable to that, then you start building from there. And we put layers of good on and we put the layers of good on to protect ourselves, and we put the layers of bad on to protect ourselves. They're both a form of insecurity. And one of the things that I realized in the wake of my daughter's death, and whenever you're learning anything in life, it's like step 1, 101, and then step 2, 102. And it just keeps going and going. We're always learning, and we're never arrived. And that can be both discouraging and exhilarating.
Yeah.
Right?
I totally agree.
I think it's exhilarating. But when how old are you, Brighton? I want to call you Bridgerton. Why do I want to do that? Brighton,
I'm 23.
At 23, I did have my teeth. That's super exciting for me, right? At 23, I remember somebody telling me, because I turned down a guy because there were some things about him, though I loved him, that were not to my ultimate list of what I wanted in a spouse. And I was told this by my sister. She said, Prince Charming's not going to come and swoop you off your feet. This is the best you're going to get. So compromise, right? You're not worth it, was the message. And I really thought about it, and I was like, then I'll be single. If compromising who I am and not living my life respecting my partner, then that sounds like a hell on earth. I want to go into that because I planned on giving my whole soul to someone I could trust, to someone I could respect. And I was fully okay with never having it. There was a movie called Cool Runnings about the Jamaican bobsled team.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen this movie? I love this movie. And it was around this time period that we're talking about in my life. And it's become one of my mottos, a quote from that movie, that like every hero in every story, every good story, there's that point of, I can't make it. I can't do it. I'm not enough. And the coach says to him, if you're not enough without it, you'll never be enough with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? We are all trying to go for that mythical point of when all the things that we want are accomplished, because then we can justify ourselves.
Yeah.
And the day my daughter died, I realized that any illusion of something out there being enough, that there would be no time, that there'd always be something missing. And sure enough, when my son got married, I felt it, this huge joy. But there was also that yin and yang, that light and dark. And there was that pain that hit me that Caitlin wasn't there. Now, there have been events, and we could get, metaphysical, spiritual, where she has interjected herself, but I still miss the hugs.
Yeah.
I still miss the touch. And that was a beautiful gift in my life that really blew open my potential. Like, I'm kind of like, dun, 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 and then it was like, poof. The next year I tripled my income. All the markers that the world counts as success, I was doing it while I could barely walk, right? Like, hear the theme music after my daughter died, because any illusion that I had to learn the next thing in order to be amazing, I had to do the next thing in order to be amazing, was destroyed. Because I had just experienced what to me was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. And I knew who I was. I knew who my closest people were now. And I knew who weren't. Possibly even more powerful than knowing who your tribe is knowing who isn't.
Absolutely.
So what voices, what words am I allowing to come into me?
Speaking to that, actually, with words and voices and kind of your inner voice, one, this is a backtrack a little bit, talking about God, source, universe, whatever you believe in. I've kind of done like a full circle thing where like I grew up in the church and then I left, I had my whole hiatus of like, nothing's real. I don't know what's real. And then I've kind of come back to it with both eyes now wide open of like, oh, this is what feels good to me. And I think that that's what was missing is like, what is truth to me? But when it comes to your really just realizing how special you are and how confident you should be, I think about how incredible it is that we are even here on this planet right now. Like the fact that I am here and the odds of me, Brighton, is here right now, or you is like so, it is divine. It really is.
Yeah, there's no scientific explanation.
Yeah, to that.
And there's a reason a lot of scientists have actually said the more that they learn, the more they believe that there is a divine hand. But Brighton too, I believe that because I know your mom, I know what your faith tradition is, and we have to separate culture from doctrine. And the doctrine of most churches becomes what I call spiritual inbreeding. And that's because when you get a bunch of people thinking the same thing, you create an echo chamber. And I call it spiritual inbreeding because ideas that were not meant to be in there get in there and people accept them as doctrine. For me, it comes down to this. Do I believe that Jesus Christ died for me? And then the promises that I have made, those of our faith tradition in the temple, mean something to me. Everything else is fluff. There are questions I have. There are injustices I see. But it has to be boiled down. If you want to be a confident person, you cannot spend all of your time chasing all of the things. Right? Because I see life differently at 51 than you are at 23. Isn't that awesome? Right? And so I believe that God sent us here for you to have your time where you didn't know. And that's okay. That's all right. We don't need to feel shame or judgment or feel bad that we're going through hard experiences. Again, those don't define you.
Yeah. I want kind of some guidance, obviously for me, but like for my audience as well. But one, is there anything that kind of comes up pretty often when it comes to what women say to you? Like, what's their main struggles type of a thing? Do you see kind of an underlying theme to what people are struggling with today?
Outside perception, our beauty, right? Like, am I beautiful? Am I accepted? And that goes to is my husband attracted to me? Are men attracted to me? Do other women perceive me as beautiful? Because unfortunately, I think as women, we place a lot of our power in outside perceptions.
Absolutely.
And so you can boil down a lot of the problems that I see with people is that it's outside perceptions is what they use to validate themselves. And I'm saying get rid of all validation.
There was this quote actually I saw probably on Instagram or something like that.
I love Instagram quotes. Yeah.
And it literally said, don't place any of your self-worth on anything that can be taken away from you. It's the same idea.
I've connotated that in this conversation.
Yeah.
Because in the wake of my daughter's death, I didn't even know if I could walk again. My husband has a heart condition. Money I didn't even care about anymore. I would live impoverished the rest of my life to have one more day with my daughter that passed. Right? Yeah. Like all of it becomes fluff when you get really boiled down in hard things. And what's so cool is that when really hard things happen, and you respect how you're responding to that, even if you're white knuckling it, I will do it this way. I'm laying in my bed in so much pain, and I hear the pitter patter of my 3 or 5-year-old coming into the room. Now, anyone would justify that I had the right to be grumpy. I've just buried a child. My extended family, the family I come from, is telling me horrible things and making horrible judgments, right? And if I believe the culture of religious doctrine, and this is across the board, then why didn't I have enough faith to keep my kid, right? Like, it's all stripped down. And I made the decision that makes me like me when I white knuckled it and that kid walked in the room and I said, hey. And it probably came out more like, hey, because I'm trying not to cry. That little choice, that little teeny choice made me proud of me.
I like
right?
that's like the
and
daily
life is
things.
boiled down to little teeny incremental choices. And when we believe that we are a victim of our circumstances, a victim of our sex, a victim of anything, we have given up the ability to make that choice. We become emotional slaves to whoever we have endowed with that power. And I'm saying you take back your power, not to exert it on someone else, but to ask yourself, how do I want to respond? It becomes an intellectual or even a spiritual exercise, whatever it is you want to do. But I have what I call the thought filter. So I like to do it this way in my speeches, where I put a colander or a strainer on my head. And of course, the audience, the quickest emotion to access the human heart is humor, right? So it's funny. So people are laughing because there's this woman all dressed up really nice with a strainer on her head, right? And so, a little thought comes up and dings the colander, and, I make the microphone, make sure it kind of hits, ding, right? And it's funny. And I'll say, here's the thought coming. And I ask the thought, I put the thought out in front of me and I say, thought, are you here to make me awesome? Are you here to help me to fulfill my purpose? And the thought goes, a bunch of excuses and whines and justifications and validation. And I say, oh, and I fling the thought off and dismiss it as a distraction. Or even, if you want to be spiritual, a thought from he who wants me to feel shame and feel poopy, right?
Absolutely.
And then if a thought comes to me, because if it is a good thought, it needs no justification, it needs no validation. And it comes in, I say, thought, are you here to make me be awesome on my purpose? And it goes, yes. It's a solid, easy answer for that thought. And then I take that thought in and I make that thought a mantra, a prayer, an affirmation. So the earlier thought that I shared about everyone in this room loves me was my first affirmation. I didn't know what that word was then. It was just the thought that had been given to me. And was that thought there to help me to be awesome, to live my purpose? Yes. It didn't say you are more beautiful than anyone else. It did not say you were in competition with anyone else. It said you have value. Right?
I love that.
Right?
It's funny. I actually think you answered one of my last questions. Because of my show, it's like the Brighten Your Day show type of a thing. I always try and get what's like a daily ritual or like daily habits or something that you do that you feel like has absolutely
and I call those
changed the game.
vanity prayers. I call those vanity prayers. And so when I'm getting ready for the day, instead of being like, oh, I hope I'm cute enough, I'm getting ready and I might put on some music. I might put on some scripture, whatever it is you want to do, or I might sit with silence. But I'm looking in the mirror, and the brain, it does not know the difference between a truth and a lie. The subconscious mind does not know the difference. It believes whatever you repeatedly tell it.
Yes.
So the sociopath becomes a sociopath because they've told themselves they have all the power. We all have an inkling towards some mental illness because we have a brain. Right? We all have anxiety. So instead of looking in the mirror and being like, oh, and feeding my anxiety or my stress or my lack, I look in the mirror and I go, I love my eyes. They see others. I love my mouth. It's going to say nice things today. And this chin right here, right here. Some people may not love those curves in that place, but everyone on my dad's side of the family has it. And these are people that I can find many examples of things that they did that I can admire. And it ties me to them. We sit around and we compare our chins. So I've taken a negative thing and made it a good thing. When it comes to the cute curve of my stomach, I call it the 3 C's: children, cheesecake, and chocolate. I can make a different choice and I could have a flatter tummy, but that would negate the cheesecake and the chocolate. Children are not what wrecks your figure. It's what you eat. Come on, people. Let's be real, right? With each choice, with each thought, it takes extra mental energy, but I'm repeating those thoughts, the ones that enhance me. And I'm doing that as I get ready in the morning so that my outward body, yes, I can do the Marilyn effect, right? Where I've energetically gotten myself and physically ready, but more I've done the inner work where I've intentionally planned out what thoughts I'm going to embrace. And I've not gotten ready in scarcity, but I'm repeating those affirmations and I'm being kind to me and I'm taking the negatives to a positive about who I am and what my value is in the day. And you do that day after day after day after day after day, you feel really good about yourself. But if you get ready, I gotta do this and I gotta slow down to speed up.
I love that.
And feed your inner soul. What would you say to a child? Now, my grandma, who I mentioned earlier, who told me I was ugly and that nobody could love me, it was not because she didn't love me. It's because her definition of love was very narrow. Her definition of love for herself was very narrow. It was based upon if she received outward validation. And that is a woman who is insecure. So why would, as much as I love my grandma, who now is doing great, she's passed, she loves me, she sees me with new eyes, right? But why would I allow someone who is insecure to define me?
Yeah.
I came out never being able to meet her beauty standard. And that was her trying to actually help me to minimize my expectations. That is a toxic idea. When a mother or grandmother or father or whatever tells a child, you're not that bright, you're not that pretty, we're not that is, to me, emotional neglect, abuse, whatever label you want to put on, if not evil. But is just their inner demons coming out.
Projecting. It's
projecting, right. And the world is full of people projecting their crap onto other people. Doesn't mean they're bad people. It means they're broken. But that does not mean I have to be broken. I came from circumstances where I was being abused in every way. I grew up in a hoarder home. There is nothing about my childhood that you would say, yes, I want that. But this principle alone changed the course of my life because I started listening to true voices. That first little voice that whispers, just whispers. And I started asking it if it was a source of truth. And I repeated only those. And the idea that everyone in this room loved me, it had to be true because God loved every single other person. I couldn't verbalize that at the time. It just felt good.
Right.
And I still do it. It's become imprinted in the subconscious of my brain.
Because you've done it enough, I think.
I've done it who knows how many times. And I've added new ones. And so when, you talked about Instagram quotes, surround yourself with great quotes.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with great ideas. And during my vanity prayer time, I'm feeding my intellect. I'm feeding my body. I'm feeding my soul. And all of that combines to have me walk out of the bathroom like, even if I just brush my teeth and put deodorant on, I'm taking that 2 minutes, let alone the 20 minutes that I spent to have this great hair, right?
Yeah.
All of that time, I am monitoring, and I'm only saying what I would say to a child. Grandma said those things because of her own weakness and her own intellectual not doing this exercise. So I would never say anything to a child that I wouldn't say. I would never say anything to myself I wouldn't say to a child.
I think it's a pretty good barometer to realize. And the reason it's funny when I say grandma told me I was ugly is because 99% of people, I'm assuming, no, that's not correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yet we say things to
Absolutely.
ourselves like that all the time.
First, I want to say thank you so much. I always leave with this last question, but I know it's been a second. So even if it's a brief something, is there any advice you would give to your 23-year-old self, or just people in their 20s right now, today?
I think don't beat up on yourself for what's been. See your future as bright. Monitor who you want to become by what you're thinking. So just a recap of what I've said.
Yep.
The world is crazy. World War III is probably coming, or Jesus, or both. Who knows? But you have the ability to make your life good. All of those outside things do not have the ability to affect your inner world unless you allow it.
Right.
And I know that even if hell descendeth, my husband and I were good. And you know what? Even without him, I know I'm good.
I love that. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for taking the time. This is an incredible conversation, and I fully believe that my audience is going to gain so much from this, because really it's all within you. It's all right here, and I think that that's a core thing that just keeps coming up. Like, you have everything within you to feel good, to be motivated, to do all the things that you want to do, and I think your story is so awesome. So thank you for sharing.
It's just what you repeat, people. It's just what you repeat. It's that simple.
Yes, I fully believe that. I was going to say, I will go ahead and link your podcast. Is there anywhere you want people to go to you if they see this episode and they want to learn more?
Social media, I'm on Facebook mostly because I'm old, but the things do get posted. And if, they want to connect more with me, I have a lot of free content, but my name, Leta, Leta, Green like the color with an E on the end, AKA hotness, pretty easy to find.